This is 𝐲𝐿 News. I'm Michelle McQuarrie coming to you from the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, where there are over 250 exhibitors this year and 100 keynote speakers, including the author of the #1 personal finance book of all time, the one and only Robert Kiyosaki. What a pleasure to chat to you in person, Robert.
In person, yeah, and you're more beautiful. I was raving about you over the Zoom call, but you're more spectacular in real life. So I'm very happy.
I will take that compliment.
No,
Thank you so much,
is.
Robert. Appreciate that. I think you're making me blush now. And of course, as a reminder to our viewers, you are the best-selling author of 27 books, the latest being The Capitalist Manifesto, and the Rich Dad series has been translated into 46 languages. So, and you were telling me that way before that, you were actually an attendee, an exhibitor at the predecessor to the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference.
Right, I get nailed as a real estate guy. But before there was a Rich Dad, I was up here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I mean, VRIC, Jay Martin puts on a fabulous show. But years and years ago, I was just starting out, I was one of these guys pitching a gold deal.
Yeah.
And it was a gold deal in China. And we took it public on Toronto, and we found gold in China, and the Chinese took it.
Yeah.
So I found out what counterparty risk is, or country risk is.
Yeah.
So I stopped eating Chinese food.
Yes, I know you've shared that story with us, that you've founded a gold mine in China, and that was confiscated by the government, which was a big life lesson for you. One of many life lessons which have helped form your thesis about a number of things, which have served you very, very well in the past with tremendous financial and business success. And you are now sounding the alarm again about the issue of fake money, about a global recession that is impending, if not already here, and about the idea that people's pensions are in peril. You are warning of not so great times ahead, saying that this is the end of the American empire, that the collapse has begun, that this is the inflection point.
Correct, and I'm very concerned right now. Because anybody who's watched 𝐲𝐿 knows that America became the power in 1944 with the Bretton Woods Agreement. And then this dollar became the reserve currency of the world. In other words, the dollar was as good as gold. That's all changed. And today we're in serious trouble globally, and I'm very concerned. The end of the American empire is here.
And that has been a big theme of this conference, this idea of de-dollarization, after the dollar has been weaponized against other countries. As we've seen in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we're seeing a number of developing world countries like the BRICS coming up with their own currency, potentially looking at taking the oil off the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia reportedly in conversations with China about changing that standard. Another big theme of this conference that we're hearing about is central banks around the world bolstering their gold supplies. Do you feel that beyond this conference, people are starting to understand that the dollar, in terms of their purchasing power beyond inflation, is on the decline?
Yes, it's spreading. People know that something's wrong with this here. But anyway, let me tell you a quick story. Because of guys like you and 𝐲𝐿 and all this, I became known as the precious metals guru. So I'm at Safeway at the salad bar counter, and people know something's wrong. So this is just 2 weeks ago. I'm standing at Safeway getting some coleslaw from the women, and they come running up and they said, "What should we invest in? What should we invest in?" So I just happened to get this thing here from, it's a pre-64 quarter. This is real. This is real silver. I got this from American Gold Exchange, and Dana Samuelson. I'm giving it a plug.
And what's the date on it there?
64.
64.
I started investing in silver when I was 17 years old. So today, I pat myself on the back. I probably have more gold and silver than most of the experts here, because that was 60 years ago. So I showed the little women this coin here. I just happened to have it.
At the salad bar.
No, I wasn't selling it. I just happened to have it because Dana sent it to me from Austin, Texas. And there, a woman asked me, said, what's the best investment? Because real estate's coming down, stocks are coming down. And I held this, I held it up. And the little women, you know, they were all tithers. Oh, I should invest in that? I said, yes. Give me this. So they looked at me and said, give you $3 for that? I said, yes. And their brains went, why would I give you $3 for that? I said, okay, give me 2. And their brains are going, why would we give you $2 for that? This is pre-64 silver. You know, Lynette Zhang, she's also from Arizona, she's numismatic. So I was holding this up here like this. And they went, they're all a tither. You know, they forgot to serve my coleslaw. And they said, why should we give you $2 for this? I said, because it's worth this. And this is the problem. The average person, American or whatever, they think this is money. This is fake money. This is real money. And I tried to tell them, I said, you know, probably 10 years from now, this will be $10. But Americans and most people in the world, because they went to school, they work for money, they save money, they get out of debt. But this is fake and this is real. So that's why I'm here at the VRIC, you know, because over 30 years ago, I was one of these little guys standing between my gold mine that the Chinese took from me.
Robert, do you think that the notion that fiat currency, which is what we've accepted as a society to use ever since Nixon 1971 took us off the gold standard.
Yeah, this is real gold.
But we have as a world, as a society, been using fiat currency. Fiat, which literally means by decree, because I said so, because governments have told us that this is what we must use.
Wait, they just misspelled it. Fiat should be spelled F-A-K-E.
Okay,
You know,
got it. Fake, right?
That's how I'm wired up.
But do you think that there is a growing understanding that fiat is in jeopardy? And it's hard to sort of separate yourself from the echo chamber of the gold conferences and even the Bitcoin conferences, where we are sort of hearing the same sentiment because it's people that share the same ideas. Do you think outside of that world, people are starting to understand that fiat currency is on a massive decline?
They don't understand why, because no financial education in schools, which is why I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. But they know something's wrong. You see, and when those women said, this is the problem, so that's why Rich Dad Poor Dad, I said, we don't save money. I save this, and I save this, and I save silver dollars. This is a buffalo. I save real money. I spend this stuff for this.
When you say you save gold and silver, is it literally in the form of gold coins and gold bars, or do you also have exposure via ETFs? No ETFs, but exposure via gold miners, because I know you have
I have gold mines and silver mines. The reason
so do you have equity in other gold mines?
I start them. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was one of these guys sitting out here years ago, you know, when I was a young guy. I learned more about entrepreneurship as a mining, a junior miner, pitching this little gold deal. I grew up here in Vancouver. I heard more BS, more deals, more things. But mining is one of the toughest industries there is because there's so many moving parts to it. And what's happening now, from what I understand, is people are not investing in gold mines. So I took a gold mine public. ODV is a call sign. It's in Utah. And it's the richest gold mine in America.
How's the stock been performing?
I really don't know. I hate to say this. I'm an entrepreneur. I start and I move on.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I like the game. So I make so much money. I just kind of, my bookkeeper calls up and says, you got to pay taxes. He goes, okay. But I'm just saying, the message I want everybody to hear is the world is finding out that this is fake. It's not fiat, it's fake. And so the reason I don't get invited to CNBC anymore is because when I'm on there, I say I do not invest in anything that can be printed. You can print this,
So would that include,
but you cannot print this.
would that include stocks in other gold miners that you do not own? Do you own stock of other gold miners? Unless you own the gold mine, it doesn't count.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay, so your own gold mine, your own gold coins,
Own silver
your own
mine.
silver mine, your own silver coins, your own silver bars, your own gold bars.
I own
Got it.
real estate because I use debt.
Right, and that's one of the premises, the founding principle of Rich Dad Poor
Yes.
Dad, is to buy real estate, use debt, and have the tenant finance your mortgage.
Yeah, and I don't save the cash flow. I buy gold and silver.
But in this environment where you are saying we're going to get a global recession, everything is collapsing, there's also a lot of concern about the housing market, of course. So you second that concern.
Because the boomers have to sell.
So what is your outlook for the housing market in the US, broadly speaking?
Buy apartment houses. I only own apartment houses. I want somebody else to pay my mortgage for me.
But
If I own my house, I'm the tenant.
Right.
I don't want to be my own tenant.
But in this environment where everything is crashing, is buying real estate now a good time?
Well, you got to be smart. Real estate is I think the toughest industry is to be a junior miner, which is here. There's so many variables. Mining is the toughest industry I've ever been in. And real estate is just as tough, but you got to be smarter. So that's why I always say your greatest asset is not this or this. The greatest asset is between this here and this here.
Right.
And the reason I come to these shows is because I'm always feeding this thing. I've learned more in one day about global, what's going on in the Ukraine war, this, and this. Andy Sheckman was up there talking about what's going on with this. I'm like, I didn't know that. So I would come to the VRIC or any one of these conferences because this is global money. And to be good at gold, you better understand the world. This here is global money, it's silver. So today I'm learning about lithium and silver and copper because it's resources. And so that's why I come to the VRIC, is to get educated.
And that's why we have you on 𝐓𝐶 News to help our viewers get educated with your perspective as well as the perspectives of others, including Andy, who we will be interviewing as well. And to your point, one of the big themes of this conference, as I've mentioned before, is de-dollarization, pointing out the fact that central banks have purchased record amount of gold as of the third quarter of last year. Russia, China, Turkey, all of them bolstering their gold reserves. We're still waiting for fourth quarter data, but the trend is central banks are buying more and more gold. Another point that I think Andy likes to highlight is how in 2019, the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, the central bank of central banks, in fact, changed the Basel III rules to make gold a tier 1 asset.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
They made gold money.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
Well, I mean,
They're
as you
so
say,
stupid. These central bankers are the most stupid people I've ever met. Like Bernanke, he gets the Nobel Prize for destroying the US economy by dropping interest rates to zero like this. And then now you have this guy, Jay Powell, who's raising interest rates. They're killing us.
But Robert, I get your point that in terms of the policy that central bankers have implemented has been detrimental to the economy in many ways. But when you see that central banks are buying gold themselves, isn't that a signal, if the banks are buying gold, that perhaps individuals should be looking at doing the same? What does that signal to you?
Well, that's why I told those women, I said, buy that. This is 25 cents.
Yeah.
This is $3. And they went, the trouble is our school system has brainwashed us to thinking this is money. So that's why this is not fiat, this is fake. And what's wiping people out today is they think this is real and this is fake.
So you invest in gold mines, you invest in gold, you invest in silver, but of course you made your name by advocating investment in real estate, where you then lease out that real estate and the tenant effectively pays off your mortgage for you. That is, if I may simplify, rich dad, poor dad. Very, very oversimplified.
Very good.
With the housing market as it is right now,
Crashing.
What is your outlook, and what does that mean for your investment thesis regarding real estate?
Well, I'm baby boomer. Trump and I are baby. We wrote 2 books together. So the baby boom caused a boom. So my generation, the boomers, was at 46 to 64. We had the easiest of any generation in history. So I graduated from the academy in 1969. You buy a house, it goes up. You put your money in the stock market, it goes up. So the boomers have only known boom. They caused it. Do you know what I mean? But now, as the boomers retire, the baby bust sits in. And that's my warning to all the boomers who in so this is 64. In 1974, the 401k was created.
Yeah.
And the stock market went through the roof. And the reason they put money into the stock market, because my generation's parents, my mom and dad, didn't trust the stock market because the market crashed in 29.
Right.
So they had to find a way, Wall Street did, to get my generation, the boomers, into the stock market. So they created, voila,
The 401k.
The 401k.
They stopped the traditional pension from most
Correct.
companies.
Correct.
And created 401ks.
Correct.
Where companies
You got it.
contribute
And the
to
stock
match
market
a
went up,
contribution.
real estate went up, and now the bust has started.
When you say the bust has started and is starting, yes, we're definitely down dramatically from all-time highs, and many people think that there's at least another 20% dip to go. But so far this year, we've got the S&P up, 6%. Globally speaking, the London FTSE is up around 2%, the Hang Seng up 12%, the DAX up 7%. This is all year to date. Granted, these percentages numbers subject to change on any given day, but the market sentiment trend starting off 2023 is a little bit more optimistic. Why do you think that is? Do you think that this is a bear market rally? Why do you think that markets are somewhat positive, again, at least to start off the year?
Well, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I don't trust the stock market. I used to be invited onto CNBC. But when I went on last time, I said, I don't invest in anything you can print. That includes this. I don't trust stocks and I don't trust bonds.
But I think I asked you this earlier, would you buy a stock in a gold mining company?
I own it.
You own the gold miner.
I start the gold mine.
But would you buy stock in a bigger gold mining company that you do not own?
I don't need to.
You don't need to. Should others then, perhaps?
I'm not a financial advisor.
Okay.
I'm an entrepreneur. I write books.
Well, what you are, Robert, is an educator,
Yes.
and you love to expand people's perspectives, and you love to give us more information to make better informed decisions.
But one more thing is I talk about things I do. I don't write or talk about things I don't do.
Yeah.
So like this guy Biden, I'm not Republican or Democrat, but I don't listen to what politicians say, I watch what they do. So as soon as Biden got elected, his first act was to take off the Keystone XL pipeline. So I sell oil. I have oil wells, I have real estate, I have gold mines because I'm an entrepreneur. The price of oil went from $30 a barrel when Biden came in, to $130 a barrel. Inflation went through the roof. And then that Biden and the crime family, they work for the Ukraine, Russia, and China. They say, well, the oil companies are greedy. Well, he cut off our oil. Civilization runs on oil. So when he took out the Keystone XL pipeline, inflation went through the roof, and this is the real problem. The middle class came down. You see, when you raise inflation, he was killing. When he took, you pumping gas in your SUV, your mom and pop, you got 2 incomes making $100K a year. What gas goes from what to what? He caused, or his group caused, the inflation.
Well, there are certainly several causes of inflation, price of energy and oil there. One would argue that the unprecedented fiscal and monetary stimulus is probably the top cause of inflation, considering how much they were printing. Energy is a bigger cause of inflation at the moment than unfiscal precedented stimulus, unfiscal printing of this stuff that they've been throwing at us for for years and threw more of it at us during the pandemic.
And as we're talking, the debt ceiling has to be raised again. So now our debt has gone from 30 trillion to 31.4 trillion. That means they have to print more of this. Think about this.
But then why do you think oil is the cause of inflation?
Because energy drives civilization. So when you're standing there pumping oil, gas into your car, it affects food, it affects everything. You know.
It's certainly a contributing factor,
Yes.
and certainly the Biden administration has had some very detrimental energy policies. Many of the domestic oil and gas producers would even say that they've waged a war on U.S. domestic oil and gas, part of the ESG narrative, part of the climate change narrative. We're seeing this trend play out around the world. Don't know that we could say certainly a contributing factor for inflation. I'll definitely give you that one, Robert. But
one more thing, Andy Schectman talks about it. He says the next thing he did was he pulled us out of Afghanistan. He left American troops behind. I'm a U.S. Marine. I flew in Vietnam twice. What Biden did was treasonous. But when he did that, Saudi Arabia shifted sides. They shifted from selling us oil to doing business with Russia. So those are the two things that they did. And that's why I'm an advocate of gold and silver and not this.
And the petrodollar is
74 too.
The petrodollar is in fact in jeopardy with the Saudis, as you say, looking at the debacle of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the U.S. signaling that it is not a military power that's going to necessarily stand up for its allies. Again, subject to debate how long the U.S. should have been in Afghanistan for and about that war in general, but what is arguably not subject for debate was the withdrawal was, well, a disaster and signaled tremendous weakness. And as you say, sent a message to the Saudis that perhaps they need to reevaluate the pledge of the petrodollar, which was Americans saying, we're going to protect you, Saudi Arabia, as long as you continue to price oil in dollars. And now there's conversation that they'll be pricing it in yuan and other currencies. We're already seeing that play out. Let's touch a little bit more on oil, though, because one of the points that you have mentioned is how the Biden administration has drained the strategic petroleum reserves. I believe it's down around 37%. Would you recommend investing in oil then? Is that something that you personally invest in?
Let me just say it again. I used to be on CNBC, but I say I don't invest in anything they can print. I don't invest in this, stocks, bonds, ETFs. I'm an entrepreneur. I start gold mines, I start oil wells. I invest in cattle, Wagyu cattle.
Yeah.
You know why? Because every time the the Wagyu bull breeds, I get cash flow. I trust the Wagyu cattle more than Joe Biden.
You have said that on our show before. You have advocated for investing in cattle for a number of reasons, including the fact that if all hell breaks loose, you can at least eat it, right? Okay, I get your point. I suppose I was just asking more for those that cannot start their own oil well or cannot start their own gold mine. But I get your point, Robert, that if it comes down to a paper certificate, Robert Kiyosaki is not interested in it.
So I'm going to say it to those women at the Safeway salad bar serving me my coleslaw. I said, I'll trade you this for this. And that's the problem. They think this is real. This is fake.
Robert, I know that you were a Marine Corps pilot in the Vietnam War. You've shared that story with us a few times. And again, thank you for your previous service. So you personally know the horrors of war. And you've touched on this now. Obviously, one of the other reasons we've seen oil go up to a degree is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And it seems as though that is only escalating. We've got significant developments on that front. Western countries have pledged 300 tanks to Ukraine. The US has pledged to provide 31 M1 Abrams tanks. Germany agreed to send 14 Leopard 2A6s, sophisticated tanks. I'm not going to pretend that I know the distinction between them. But here's the point, is the Ukraine has now received tanks from the US and Germany. And now there's talk about sending F-16s. So this war is escalating in terms of the US's involvement beyond money, beyond training troops, sending heavy and heavier artillery. We've got the likes of, North Korea accusing the US with this move of further crossing the red line, and that shapes up another conversation that we've had about the split
That's what Andy
the world
Schickman's
system.
talking about, the BRICS nation and all that.
The BRICS nations, allies potentially of Russia and China, as this potential war starts to escalate further and further. Denmark, by the way, is sensing that war is afoot, and they've actually planned compulsory military conscription for women. So they're looking at bolstering their forces. How do you see this conflict playing out? Because nuclear war is looking more and more like a possibility. The doomsday clock, which measures the likelihood of nuclear war, that is forecasting that the world is just 90 seconds away from total annihilation. That is the highest risk of nuclear war ever. What do you think? Do you think this is something that it could escalate into?
Well, as a Marine Corps pilot, I've killed a lot of people. And so what I see going on in Ukraine, my heart bleeds. I feel for the women and children more than the soldiers. But I'm so old, like I started buying this, 60 years ago. But even before that, in 1962, I believe, I grew up on the island of Hawaii, the big island. And I saw an atomic bomb go off. So there was Christmas Island south of us. And my family are watching television. I'm probably 14 or 15 years old. And I see this flash go through the house. I went, what's that? What was that? What it was Christmas Island detonating a small bomb.
As a test.
Yeah, that's how they tested the weapons. And so my family, we turn off Johnny Carson or whatever it was, and we go to the window, and the paper described it exactly. It said it looked like somebody poured blood in the sky. So when Rickards is talking about possibility of nuclear war and all that, I think the reason it's easy to talk about it is you haven't seen it. Like most people haven't killed anybody. When you see that, I'm anti-war now. It's horrible. It was horrible what we had to do. And I felt for the troops when we got spit on when we got back from Vietnam. Anyway, so when the paper says it looked like blood was poured in the sky, so when people just casually toss around, oh, it's a possibility of a nuclear war, they don't know what they're talking about. I am a U.S. Marine. I'm a ring knocker. It means I went to the academy. Yeah, I'm as hardcore military as they become. I do not like where we're going. We're cruising for war to end the problem of this year, just because of fake money.
So you say they don't know what they're talking about in the sense that they don't fathom the severity of what this actually means, not that they're wrong necessarily.
Well, Eisenhower warned of it, the the military-industrial complex.
And you say we're going to war because of this? Explain what you mean by that.
There's one more thing, is today they talk about homelessness. It's exploding. And people say it's because they're on drugs or they're mentally deranged. But there's a whole classification of homeless who are working homeless. Because this is so abundant, they can't afford a house. So they're working, they live in their cars with their kids and all this. They're not drug dealers, they're honest, hardworking people. But the more they pervert this, which started in 1971, when Nixon took this, which is gold, off the gold standard, this became fake money. And fake money, like the Weimar Republic in Germany and all this, has always led to war and depression.
Yeah.
I'm concerned. And that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I said, why don't our schools teach us about money? Why don't they teach us in 1964, President Johnson took this off the gold standard. Why don't they teach us in 71, Nixon took this off the gold standard? That's more important than sexual bending or critical race theory.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's garbage what they're teaching kids.
Robert, certainly a ton of reform in the American educational system should be happening, as you quite rightly say. But thankfully, people like you and others do try to create financial education for people try. All right, we'll participate in that to try and at least give people access to information. on a final note,
Just remember, I'm the salad bar guru now.
you're the salad bar guru.
Because I told those women, this is fake, this is real.
Robert, you're also the author of the world's best-selling personal finance book, as we've discussed. You've mentioning gold and silver, but in your tweets you write GSB, gold, silver, Bitcoin. Why do you think Bitcoin is going to survive all of this?
You're asking the wrong guy. In financial education, there's fundamental trading and technical. Technical is up and down. So when I saw Bitcoin go to 20,000, I don't know when it was, then it dropped down to $1, so it's toast. But then it came roaring back. So when it hit 6,000, I bought 60 Bitcoin at 6,000. I think today it's at 20,000.
So yeah, it's around about 21,000.
Yeah, but so the more I'm in it, the more I realize it has sustainability. So the reason people buy Bitcoin is the same reason I buy this and I buy this, is I don't trust this. It's the same reason. I want to say one last thing. I mean, these academic geniuses like Bernanke, the PhDs from academia, he destroyed our economy. Bernanke destroyed our economy by dropping interest rates so low and printing money. Now we're the biggest debtor nation in world history, and they give him the Nobel Prize. What is wrong with our country? What is wrong with us? And we're supposed to be the reserve currency of the world after 1944. Why don't we teach kids that? Why don't we teach them it's a 1619 project which changes history? Why is our education system so corrupt? But that's the story of rich dad, poor dad. My poor dad, PhD from Stanford, Northwestern, Chicago. He knew nothing about money. My rich dad never went to college, but he did know this was real and this is not real.
And you expound on all of that in your several books, as well as the Capitalist Manifesto, which is your latest book. Robert, I recommend everybody reads it. I've read it. It's a very good read, and it breaks things down very succinctly for everyone. Again, thank you so much for sharing your opinions and your perspectives with us and helping the 𝐲𝐞𝐫 viewers to learn from one of the greatest personal finance gurus and the salad bar guru, Robert Kiyosaki. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I'm Michelle McCory. Keep it right here.
𝐲𝐶𝐞 News, special coverage of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, is brought to you by First Mining Gold.